That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
People still believe in higher education, but they don't always see what colleges do for them. Curious why? Me too. Welcome to Pulse Check, the Reputation Rethink, a 5-part series from Ologie. I'm your host, Dayana Kibilds, Vice President of Strategy at Ologie, the branding and marketing agency for organizations with missions that matter. In this series, we'll pull the curtain back on our new national study to surface the disconnects shaping higher ed's reputation. We'll hear from experts who are acting on these insights and give you the tools to start shifting reputation through smarter strategy and storytelling. Now, let's get to today's episode. In our first episode, we introduced Ologie's recent national study, the Reputation Rethink. My colleagues at Ologie shared with you the most important finding from our study, which is the public knows about higher education's value. They just don't see it. They feel disconnected from the impact our institutions have on their day-to-day lives. So, we identified 5 areas where colleges and universities can amplify efforts to connect with the public. One of those areas is research, and that is the focus of our episode today. I've invited 2 outstanding leaders in our industry to share their expertise when it comes to communicating about the importance of research. Marina Cooper is Senior Associate Vice President for Integrated Marketing and Brand at Johns Hopkins University, and she oversaw the marketing strategy and execution of the university's recent Research Saves Lives campaign. Welcome, Marina.
Thanks, Day. So great to be here with you.
And joining us as well is Cameron Farwell, Senior Vice President of University Relations at Boston University, and her team recently launched the URY campaign. Welcome, Cameron.
Great to be here.
So, in our study, we asked the public where they think colleges and universities play the most important role in advancing society beyond education. The answer, by far, was research. 90% of respondents said that research in STEM and medicine is the most important contribution universities make beyond educating students. What's especially striking is how consistent this view is. It holds across political alignment, region, income level, geography, and education level. The importance of research is the thing people broadly agree on. And yet, only about 2 out of 3 people believe that universities are actually making an impact through research. That gap made us curious. We asked them, what would make you feel that colleges and universities are making more of an impact? And the answer really surprised us, because people didn't say, more research. They said, tell us more about it. They want to hear the stories. And that's exactly what both of your institutions are doing with your Research Saves Lives and your URY campaigns. So let's hear from you. Can you tell us a bit about your campaigns? What are the goals of these campaigns and how did they come to be?
Our URY campaign was built from an idea around our annual report. And so instead of just talking about our research and talking about the amazing accomplishments of our researchers, we really wanted to change the narrative into why we do what we do. And that is where the name came from. And I asked the team to really look at how do researchers connect to those that they impact. And so we searched for stories where we could very quickly show a researcher as a human being and then connect them with the actual people that they were working to help. And so those stories are hard to find. Finding a person who is impacted by a researcher's work and then having them appear on screen together. We had to do a lot of collection to find those people. But once you do, the payoff was really strong. And so you end up with an example of a researcher sitting across from a parent who has a child who no longer has to wake up 4 times in the night to get their insulin because of the advancement that researcher created. And that's when you hit people in the heart and they understand the value of the research.
I cannot imagine how difficult it would be to find the specific stories. Marina, how about you? Can you tell us about Research Saves Lives?
Yes. So we created and developed Research Saves Lives around the early part of 2025 when all of us were amidst a real change in really how the federal government was evaluating how it funds America's research enterprise, which we all know deeply affects our research institutions. And of course, Hopkins being America's first research university, but also one of the largest recipients of federal funding dollars for research, we felt we needed to create a campaign that really connected the dots on research's impact to folks' everyday life. Same thing Cameron's talking about. But we wanted our campaign to really be a voice and a vehicle directly for our researchers to be able to use it as a toolkit to go out and do the storytelling in many ways themselves. So we created the campaign really to connect the dots on research impact to folks' everyday life. We wanted to make research feel real and really let the American public know what was at stake. So every day, our media relations team does a great job of putting our research out into the world to say that it's relevant. But more importantly, this campaign was about really making it plain and letting it be the voice and the vehicle for our researchers to do the talking. So we put together a campaign toolkit that we tried to make as flexible and easy as possible for any individual or any institution to use. And what I mean by that is that it's open source and white label. So anyone can go on our brand website, pick up the assets, and then use Research Saves Lives to amplify their messages and their storytelling on their own platforms and on their own social channels. Obviously, adjacent to that, we continued to do storytelling as well as an institution. There's breakthroughs that Hopkins focuses on, specifically around our strengths in health and STEM, as well as specific diseases like Alzheimer's and cancer that we wanted to double down and focus on in terms of our grateful patient stories, our grateful parent stories, and again, connecting that research to real world impact. We started that work in early February of 2025, and we've continued it. We see this as, central to our mission, existential for us in many ways, and a message that we knew we needed to carry and just had not been doing a good enough job making that impact real for everyday Americans.
I think that's why I'm such a big fan of both of these campaigns, because if, in the study we found, people understand the importance of research. Like they know it's important. But both of these campaigns give them the words, the stories, the tools to kind of prove that it's true to themselves and to others. We've talked about those stories. We talked about how important it is to connect it to everyday lives. What was specifically important for both of your institutions to showcase through the storytelling of these campaigns?
For us at Hopkins, it was really important for us to reinforce our reputational strength. Breakthroughs in Alzheimer's, cancer, diabetes, AI, early detection, and how we're using that for early detection in sepsis. But I think we were also intentional on how we distilled and delivered the message to the American public. When we say that the campaign needed to connect the dots, there's actually a little dot in lives, in the Research Saves Lives identity for you, just as a little note to say, we need to make this simple and digestible. And we use that dot to say, 1 in 4. So we would literally have infographics that boiled down research or breakthroughs in social tiles that, anyone could share. Obviously, we shared them primarily, but it was really that approach. It was, let's not take our usual storytelling, to the American public. Let's make it even easier. And again, it was really important to shine a light on the fact that we do research, not just within our own institutional walls, but that research often crosses state lines. It's collaboration that happens across many institutions in order for these breakthroughs and innovations to happen. Things like food allergy research, human aging, traumatic brain injury. Those are collaborations that Hopkins and other, well-known universities and research institutions are our partners in. And so we just wanted to be able to, again, take those specific pieces into this campaign.
I think for us, it was also an acknowledgement of how people consume information. Video is very much helpful in driving emotional messages. So a lot of short clip messages, message from our president as well performed the best in our campaign because she was articulating not only that our research matters, but that we needed the government agencies and partners to help us continue this work, and that work would end up in impacting on people's lives. There was a definite decision to not go negative about what would be lost and more what is to gain. And I think that is a message that we saw as being more beneficial to public trust in what we do as institutions and why we do it, is not of viewing the message as something of loss, but something that we all do for each other, for the people we love, and that our researchers are human beings who spent their lives trying to improve lives. And if you dig into their stories, many researchers have personal reasons why they are pursuing a topic, and showing their humanity as well as those that receive it is very powerful. And we found this much more effective to talk about what's going on in terms of the value of research rather than beating up on the politics of the thing. What is our value? It's up to us to show it. And also, our campaign talked about partners, and our campaign was tied in with our advancement team, that we joined forces with our advancement team as well as communicators throughout the campus, that all of us would carry this message together. And it was much more powerful to mobilize everyone behind pushing these messages. And another thing that happened during our campaign is the researchers, the people doing this work, they were just uniformly so appreciative that their work was being couched in this way because they were prideful. It made the whole university feel prideful around this amazing work. And so it was not only a boost in our reputation and people understanding our value, but a boost for our internal community to say, that's right, that's it. That is why we're here.
I want to dig into that a bit. Like, how do you establish that collaboration internally? But before I jump to that, I want to ask you about your audiences, because hearing you both talk about these campaigns, you're talking about very different constituents, right? Even just thinking about the research areas, from AI to cancer to other types of disciplines that are not really necessarily connected. How did you make sure that your campaigns actually reached and connected the audiences that you intended to connect with?
You start with a good story, but making it land requires you to go in a lot of different directions to reach the different audiences where they sit. So we put the material on a website. We gave kits to people from all over campus. They could translate the ideas of the campaign into their own materials. But generally, it was materials for everyone to share in the way that it needed to be shared with different constituents. So government relations people were sharing these messages, short clip videos with elected officials and saying, I just want to share this example with you. I'd love to talk to you more. And that was very effective. And then when you're going for alumni, they often want to hear from the schools that they associate with. So those were carried through those channels to alumni. Donor constituents, the advancement team, were taking the videos and pushing them that way. The advancement team also held a alumni weekend, and they had QR codes all over the place where people could connect in with the storytelling. We played the videos at hockey games, the types of videos that would appeal to people at hockey games. So you have to cover the range, but you have to do it in a way that video makes sense at a hockey game. That text that's sent to the government relations official is following on an ongoing conversation, and then the full blasts are thoughtful about people's time and what's going to hit that broad audience.
I think we followed the same model, thinking about we needed to create kind of the creative brief and the framework, but we knew that there was expertise throughout the institution that needed to take this to their specific audiences differently. Whether it was our development and alumni relations team, they know, right, what our alumni need to hear and how that needs to be segmented. We have a phenomenal team at Medicine who captures grateful patient stories. They on their own saw opportunity to connect back to the campaign. And luckily, the creative assets were flexible enough to be able to be used and scaled across so many platforms and really expressions. We're really excited about the way that it came together in that way. And similarly, as Cameron's talking about, we've taken our message to Capitol Hill with our federal strategy team, who obviously are the experts there and know how to segment those audiences. So I agree with Cameron. You have to find that universal appeal, get the right story, make it relevant, But really, this has been a collective effort of so many incredible strategic marketing and communicators across our institutions that have made these research response campaigns that I guess we can categorize them now
Yeah.
really impactful and successful.
Yeah.
And what we've seen also, I'll just add one more thing at Hopkins, is that our colleagues kind of have taken it on themselves. So we started with Research Saves Lives, and then our Children's Center said, well, can we create Research Saves Children? And they really wanted to focus in, right, on the stories, the amazing and powerful stories within the medical center. So, we talk about research supports jobs. That's a whole economic impact arm. We have important audiences that need to hear that. And then research protects America, not just thinking about defense, but also space exploration, and like really expanding the mind to all the places that research has to go. So it's been a wonderful collaborative and, as Cameron also said before, unifying and prideful opportunity for our institutions. And we're just excited to see it continue.
And so I love that it's taking off kind of organically in your audiences and your communities, because I think that really proves the fact that people just know this to be true and they just needed the words to be able to share it, right? And like I tend to do most of the work that I do is enrollment centric. And stories are the currency, no matter what you're doing, what your goal is, who you're marketing to. And those stories are true to our institutions, right? Like they exist within our community. And how you tell it or who you tell it to or when you tell it is what changes. That's the job of a marketer or a communicator, right? So I can imagine some of these stories even helping with enrollment, definitely graduate enrollment, which is so connected in general to research, but also just seeing these incredible faculty members that you could learn with at an undergraduate level, right? So it's just such a rich collection of human capital, I guess. It's just good news, right? So
Absolutely.
okay, I want to get a little tactical, because what we're talking about, if I were not here talking to you and I were listening, I would be like, I want to do this right now. Like, how do I do this? How do I stand this up? So, as we were saying before, it starts with the stories. So, how did you curate or surface the stories that you wanted to tell? Let's start with you, Cameron.
We are lucky enough to have a pretty robust gathering of information across campus. We have really robust publications that scour the university. We're lucky enough to have a magazine called The Brink that focuses on research throughout campus. And they've had amazing success over the last many years, spending real quality time with our researchers across campus. They know many of them personally, and they know how to tell those stories. And so we use the strength of our publications to really pull out the ideas. But I think we also challenge the other parts of our operation to not just leave it to publications to tell the stories, but to tell the stories that we gathered from those mechanisms and tell them in new and different ways. And so this was a different approach for our video teams in terms of connecting researcher with patient. Because normally they would go and just do a story about the researcher. But when you can combine the Parkinson's researcher with the person who can now walk for the first time in 2 years down their street, that has much more power. And so this has been kind of a fire underneath those storytelling mechanisms. The other thing is combine your forces. One of the greatest things was that we launched this campaign. I am relatively new to Boston University. I came in at the same time as a new leader for advancement, Michelle Sheely. And we said, let's combine our storytelling forces. Let's do this in a way that both of our teams completely consume this and make it their own. And so it's built in that way. It fits those different needs. And the communicators across campus, Marina talked about how a different part of the university took it on in their own way. Our sustainability team came up with a way that URY made sense for them, and they completely internalized it. So it's contagious when you give people a theme that matters. This is about building public trust, and nothing matters more than that.
I love what Cameron said about combining forces and that cross-pollination that happens within teams when they see the way one team works a little bit differently. I think we certainly saw that when we combined forces with some of our colleagues and marketing and comms colleagues to build these stories together. This campaign actually came at, I think, obviously an unexpected time for all of us. At Hopkins, at the beginning of 2025, we were getting ready for this year, which is our 150th, our sesquicentennial.
Wait, Marina. Yeah, okay. I was going to say it the hard way.
Say it harder. Our sesquicentennial. I've had a lot of years of practice saying that. But we were getting ready for that big moment before all of this happened. So what was happening was our content team, which I have to say is stellar, run by another very talented associate vice president, was already running this like university-wide, what he called like a content hackathon. So it's really all the writers of all the different magazines and schools and institutions and divisions who think about storytelling anyway. He had gathered all of them together in this hackathon to think about what are the Hopkins' greatest hits? Like, what are our stories that we're so proud of that really lift up who we are and really deliver impact? So when we were hit with kind of this moment of trying to understand what our best stories were, we were really lucky, like that we had a wonderful bank of story ideas, but also, the originators, the creators, the ideators who were right there in the room with us. And so we had just kind of convened weeks before we really just started developing this campaign. So when you think about like tactically what you can do, I would say get everybody in a room. And as Cameron pointed out, the stories can come from any and everywhere, and great ideas we know can come from anywhere. And then, of course, the collaboration followed. And we worked together and see each other work.
I mean, this all sounds like a success story. And you both are here because these campaigns have been. So if someone, let's say, does try to gather folks, or maybe someone doesn't already have a hackathon or a Brink magazine, what is your advice on getting or helping them engage the campus community in this collection of stories?
I think it's really important to tell people a lot about what it is you're looking for. You're looking for those stories that show direct impact on things that matter to people. So certain research lends itself better than others in terms of demonstrating its direct impact. And it's not to say those other sciences and other research aren't important, because a lot of times they're the building blocks to something that is impactful. But I think you specifically pick research that has that kind of impact. And we also wanted to show that it's not all medical research. There are other kinds of research that have direct impact to people's lives, but you really narrow in on those. And that gives you sort of the places to focus on in terms of where do I dig for the stories that people will feel. And that took us to a lot of places that for our community living in the urban setting, we have quite a bit of work in that direction. How do you clean up rivers? That's something that people care about. So really swimming in those ponds, and then looking for the researchers who are particularly adept at sharing those stories, particularly on video. And so you really want, and the ingredient I look for is, can you see their passion? It goes a long way if someone shows that passion, then you get excited about what it is they're sharing with you. And it was a challenge to do those stories in 30 seconds, but they really rose to the challenge. I was really impressed with when forced. You can tell a good story in 30 or 45 seconds.
I'll speak a little bit to more maybe the creative side, because that's really where my team holds a lot of ownership with the Research Saves Lives campaign. And when it comes to creative, when we started first kind of building our creative team within University Comms, we really had this team mantra that was, let's make it easy for people to do the right thing. And that's really around kind of brand guidelines and brand alignment. We actually created a whole new brand website, like based on that principle, because we knew, like, if we make adoption easy, we get alignment, instantly. We get consistency and good proliferation of just good tactics, right? And so when we create campaigns centrally, we always have every part of our institution in mind. And because there are so many talented people at Hopkins, they push us to be even better and sharper and make sure that it is flexible and that it does scale. So we're really proud of how, this campaign could be just yet another example of how that worked well because we all worked together to make it happen. I think we're really proud of that. And I would say also, while the storytelling is really important in the centerpiece, right, that makes the impact, don't underestimate a good T-shirt and a bumper sticker, well placed at the right place, right time, because folks take these things on the road, right? Um, and and having all of those pieces and components together, and and that's sometimes the first request we got was, this is a great campaign. When are your T-shirts going to be available? And you know what? Wow. We're over here trying to get the right story at the right time, and they seem to. But you know what? When those T-shirts showed up, when our colleagues and researchers were standing up for science in Washington, we were proud. We were proud that we had it together.
Oh.
So I would say no ask is too small. Be flexible, scale. It all makes you better and sharper. It unifies you. And then stick with it. We're lucky to be able to proactively keep carrying this torch as a marketing and brand team. And we don't take that lightly. And so I would also say, stick with it. You can go in a lot of different directions. Other things can take priorities quite easily, and you can be moving on to the next thing. I say stick with your campaigns like this that are so mission-driven and mission-specific.
So I'm sure our listeners are really eager to know what results you've seen. So can you share what you've noticed now as a result of these campaigns being live?
For our university, we have a new president. She's been here for 18 months. And I think it has helped define where the university is going, because this campaign talks about the future of research. It talks about the future of the university. And one of her key messages is that the university is working to serve society, but we don't do that alone. And so a big piece of URY is the call for partners. Yes, the federal government, but also industry partners, also others, that we are not looking for the answers for what the future university is just by looking internally, but that we're reaching outward in true partnership. And that is a little different message for higher ed, is to reach outward, because if you are going to build that trust, we have to work together with others who are trying to contribute to that society. So that's been a true benefit, to be able to be so forward looking. We have also found that this has given our board of trustees something to get behind that is specific and speaks to the reputation of the institution. You're holding up its best research as your primary message, and you're relating it in a way people can consume. And the trustees got behind this, and the campaign that undergirds the URY effort, all of the money that we're collecting is to support research, to support PhD students. That's what we're raising money for. So the trustees really embrace this, because they created a matching fund to support the future scientists, scholars.
How smart.
Yes. So we're seeing pressure on that pipeline. So this campaign put a focus on that need to keep PhD students going. And so with their matching fund, they can support PhD students. And so it's a mobilization and also kind of a purpose for people to get behind in this really disorienting time where higher ed feels so under attack, to build something new.
I think what Cameron's describing is kind of really what phase 2 is for these campaigns, which is, first it was, let's get these stories out. People have to know. We haven't been saying it, right? And now it's like, now we've given folks the tools to take action, whether, they want to be a part of helping with that pipeline to keep research alive, or advocacy, right? And so I think that is certainly part of the success. Research Saves Lives has reached over 4 million people organically. And that's primarily, I think, through our social channels. And so we're really proud of that. But I think we're also proud of all the things that Cameron was talking about. There's been some earned coverage, which is something our media relations team works really hard. But I think the more we can, again, mobilize, like Cameron said, and really empower individuals to be storytellers themselves. I think institutions can do some of this storytelling, but at the end of the day, we need the American people and the American public who have benefited from this research, who have participated in this research, and who are bringing this research to bear. We need them to mobilize and be the next communicators for us.
That's an unstoppable force. Thank you both for joining me today. I do have a final question for you both. I want to ask you if you could offer advice to our marketers and communicators who are listening. They want to communicate the value of research to. What's the one thing you want to tell them to focus on?
It sounds a bit cliche in our line of business, but content is always king. Everyone has content because there isn't a university across the land that doesn't have someone who has moved a needle that has brought something about that made a positive change. It's what we're built for. And also making sure that you're hitting people where they are, and making sure that that content resonates with people. I also think in this media environment, in an environment that's so loud, it's better to focus on the quality of a few messages that really resonate and repeat the heck out of them in different ways than worrying about quantity, meaning I need to tell a story from every school and unit across the university.
Oh my gosh, preach. Say that really loud. No, you don't. You don't.
You need to find a few things that you could potentially see go viral because it's just that great, and then pound the heck out of it. So really find the gems and beat the heck out of them and focus on the quality of the story. It will be much more powerful.
That's exactly what my advice is. She said, beat the heck out of them. In marketing, we would say atomize that content, which basically, podcast, make social posts. How many directions can we take a great story? And it'll also make sure that we're using the best vehicles to share this story. The only thing I'd also add is to be timely. Do it well, but get it out there. Time is actually of the essence and really important for relevance. We all consume so much information on a daily basis. And so as best you can, move quickly.
I just absolutely love this advice. Once again, thank you both for being here. I think, Cameron, you said this. Find the stories that people can feel. I think that's incredible advice. And then atomize them. Like you said, Marina. Make sure they spread. A quote is a story. A photo is a story. A full video is a story. You don't need the full production every time. So thank you both. And thank you to our listeners as well for joining us for episode 2 of Pulse Check, the Reputation Rethink. We still have 3 episodes coming up full of insights and next steps for how you can influence what the public thinks of your colleges or universities. Next week, we'll be talking about funding and what your local community expects from you. See you then.
The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.